Right, we are 2 minutes past the start time. You are hearing the voice of Tom Kerr of Aura. Welcome to this, the second of a triplet of webinars that we are putting on today by way of our April 29th seminar. I hope you're suitably settled into your seats with a cup of tea or coffee and a selection of biscuits, ideally. I trust no one's on the gin yet. We'd normally be in the splendid surroundings of the RAF Club in London, but of course the lockdown has prevented us from doing that. So today we'll be delivering this, the 285th Aura seminar, through the power of Zoom. So although we've changed channel, we'll still adhere to the key principles of Aura seminars and webinars, which is, of course, to ensure that you leave this event with learnings you can immediately put into practice. So in this, the second of today's webinars, you'll hear two case studies. The first presentation will be delivered by John Cohen, Managing Partner of Kindling Strategy. And the second presentation will be delivered by Steve Wateridge, founder of Razor Research, Chloe Bartram, Associate Partner at Razor Research, and Philip Waite, Head of Audiences, Sport and 5 Live at the BBC. So in John's presentation, he will be revealing the naked truth. No need to cover your eyes here. How to use WhatsApp to get closer to your audience than ever before. This entertaining presentation will explore the value of using WhatsApp as a research tool, suggest hints and tips and best practice, and highlight the potential pitfalls. After the presentations, we're going to have a Q&A session, which will start about 12:30. So pop your questions into the tab at the bottom of the screen, and we'll come back to those at 12:30. I'm now going to hand over to John to take us through the first presentation. John, over to you.
Hi, Tom. Thanks, Tom. Hi, all. I'm John Kerr from Kindling. And also thanks to Suzanne for setting this up as well. So it's great to be involved. Yes, the naked truth. And funny enough, actually, I was saying to the guys, I didn't realise that I wasn't going to be on video. I thought and this presentation was going to be on video, so I did actually get dressed, which I even put on a nice shirt, which is obviously unusual for the circumstances. And obviously, I hope everyone's well. But so what I'm going to do is just, so you've got an idea, we've got 25 minutes now. So I'll go at pace if that's okay. Hopefully everyone's Wi-Fi is working okay and I don't turn into a Dalek during the course of the presentation. But so I am going to go at speed. And if anyone feels like I'm going too fast, just stop me. But we're going to sort of talk for half a bit about the joys, excuse me, the joys of WhatsApp. And the rest of it, we're going to talk about best practice and outputs and then obviously chat at the end. Excuse me. And if you're lucky, I'll make it all the way through. So anyway, talking about just a very brief word about WhatsApp and our relationship sort of kindling and how long we've been doing it. So I started using WhatsApp as a tool formally for doing research about 4 years ago. And since then, I reckon we've counted somewhere in the region of 150 projects using WhatsApp, both as a pre-task and a standalone tool. So obviously, hopefully, you'll feel that the sort of the things we're going to talk about is based on a wealth of experience, and it covers a huge range of different types of projects. That is one of the joys of WhatsApp, but not really what I'm going to talk about because I suspect you guys know this. But behavioral insights, segmentation, strategy development, new product development program, creative development, disaster checking, policy, you name it, we've researched it on WhatsApp. We've covered every single type of topic pretty much imaginable, whether it be banking, cancer, chocolate, trains, whatever it may be. And a huge range of audiences from elderly respondents in Bradford, you know, in their native tongue, talking about care home fears, to young women in the US talking about their desires and urges for impulse shopping. And some of that's happened overnight in preparation for workshops the following day, and others have been 12-week studies, which we're actually engaged in at the moment with a TV provider in order to explore different changing relationships to technology over the course of lockdown. So, and as I said, that's not really what I'm going to talk about, but hopefully just gives you an initial sense of quite how versatile using WhatsApp as a research tool can be. But really what I wanted to talk about was the naked truth. These top three, what I've called the top three benefits of WhatsApp. And I think these are the things that make it really interesting because in a sense they're new. They're things that I don't believe, having done this for a while, that we were really able to do in this way before. So firstly, what do I mean by naked truth? Well, I mean, for starters, it means literally naked. I think one of the most amazing things, one of the things I've always been, never ceases to shock me and surprise me when you do research via WhatsApp, is how many people, how many men are naked, literally naked, from the waist up, obviously, as far as I'm aware, and how many women are not wearing makeup and take part in the research in dressing gowns. Now, I've done a lot of research groups and depth interviews over the years, and even with Zoom at the moment, I find, in my experience, very few people come without clothes on. It's not the norm. It's not something I'd seen before, and most women also wear makeup. And the reason that's important is obvious. It's really simple and obvious. It's that naked respondents equal naked response. And respondents who are genuinely at ease, respondents who are genuinely at ease are unguarded and open in their response. And really, as researchers, that's all we want. That's all you can ask for, is to know that what people are telling you and showing you is what they really do, that what they're saying and what they're expressing represents how they feel, and what they're saying about your idea is what they genuinely think. And that's it. And as you can see from this video, that is what you get.
I saw these. Da-da-da. These beautiful golden scissors. They're for the bunnies. I've got two little rabbits recently, and it's to cut their fur. I didn't think very carefully about if these were the right scissors for the job, but they're definitely the ones I like the most.
You know, the things that I've typed up on Google, especially that I wouldn't want anyone to hear.
This is definitely my kind of programme. I think the ladies will like him. He looks like a bad boy. I like the fact there's loads of swearing in it.
What, no girl falling asleep after using my phone to watch videos on?
Often money does feel like you're a little bit out of control.
My wife had a lung cancer in '92. She kept saying, I've just got pain in my back. She thought she pulled a muscle. She kept putting off going to the doctors. By the time we got there, it was obviously spread too far, and she was dead in 3 months.
I would dearly love her to be in a care home or have some extra care, but preferably in a care home, because I think the company would be good for her. But when it's brought up in conversation, she gets very emotional, and it makes me feel emotional.
Look after Apu karni pendi hai,
just cooking dinner, got an empty chicky packet. Can't bother to go downstairs again and recycle it, so unfortunately it is going in a bin. I don't feel bad, but today I'm just not in a recycling mood.
I'm not sure what I can do about global warming. I'm not really that bothered.
It's like a love-hate thing, isn't it? It's like this issue I know is the biggest issue, but it's also the issue that I feel we can do nothing about.
My sister-in-law says I'm killing the planet one wet wipe at a time. So here we are. Love a baby wipe. Not good for the environment.
I get a lot of squirrels that come down from the trees here, and what they do is they steal my golf balls, which can get very, very annoying.
So it just gives you a sense when we talk about naked truths that obviously people are actually naked, but really what they're doing is they're revealing their foibles and their faults. They're showing you what they really do. They're willing to show you in a way that I don't think I've ever experienced before, walking on the hall and taking a video of the fact that their kid has fallen asleep in the cot with their mobile phone next to them. They're willing to show you that actually, you know what, I can't be bothered to recycle and I don't care about the environment. They're willing to say and show what they do and what they really feel. And you just get a bit of a sense of some of those of people talking about cancer, about care for the elderly, subjects about that. You can feel the raw emotions coming through as well. And I think importantly as well, people are able on WhatsApp to share their conflicted feelings. It's very easy for kind of in research to actually feel like you should just say one thing, but on WhatsApp you can say, I'm not sure about how I feel about stuff, and actually sort of demonstrate the complexity of human emotion. So with WhatsApp, you get these behavioural, emotional, and intuitive truth. But I think most importantly, and something that what really makes WhatsApp most interesting of all is that the default is to tell the truth. Now, obviously, we all know about System 1 and System 2. And the joy of WhatsApp is that it is in people's nature when they use WhatsApp to say how it is. And I've never really experienced that before. So I've obviously used lots of tools, research tools as well. I'm sure, like all of you have, which we require respondents to download in order to be able to say what they think. And my experience is that puts the process above the people, and you never truly get the same level of uncontrived response as you do if you just use something as simple as WhatsApp. The other thing I just want to touch upon, well, there's a couple of things, and then we'll talk about best practice and how we might approach it, but there's just something about interaction, and this is also something that feels quite unique to WhatsApp.
Hello, we're Ben and Barbara.
Hello.
Hi there, I'm Grace.
Hey, I'm Fred. Hi, John. This is Ian and Mandy. We are out in Paris at the moment.
Can I say something? I love this idea. I think one of the things that we are looking for all the time is what we could do for team bonding.
It's quite satisfying to watch, seeing it all come together and satisfying to watch.
I don't think it's great. It's not revolutionary. I mean, I think it is revolutionary, actually. You're just saying that just to be awkward and different.
I think this would be great for the recorded messages that we send. Like the teas in the dogs. And if you don't come home soon, I'm going to cry.
So it's just a way of of doing research that enables people naturally to capture the interrelationship and interaction between them, their loved ones, their family and friends, and gives you a sense of a true sense of how people respond to ideas in the real world, how they develop their opinions, and often see the conflicting response between the two. So you get that. So first, you get those naked truths. The second is you get that interaction. The third thing I just want to briefly talk about is the fact that it is incredibly inclusive. Now, I did a project for talk to lettings agents, would you believe, about their daily lives, and this made a real impression on me. I had to talk to people across all levels, so from senior managers to juniors within lettings agents. And one of the people I spoke to was meant to be the manager of a very high-profile, well-respected agents in St John's Wood, so one of the wealthiest areas of London. And when I got through the spec before the start of it to show me the respondents' details, so I got through, this guy, he said that the manager was aged 21. And I thought, there's just no way that's happening. They've misrecruited it. I was really frustrated. It's like, I'm meant to be talking to the manager and you've got me, the office junior. So I rang up the recruiters and I said, no, honestly, he says he's the manager. I thought, well, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. So I turned up and I met the guy. His incredibly smart office, lots of people working there, and out comes this 21-year-old who was indeed the manager. And he was the most impressive person, one of the most impressive people I've ever met. He was absolutely incredible. Clearly not a qualification to his name, but just smart, incredibly ambitious, and very, very together. And this was a guy who regularly rented out properties for £30,000 a week. So this is in Hamilton Terrace, and this is an example of the type of property this guy's renting out. And I said to him, how did you do it? How did you manage to be manager of this place by the age of 21? He said, I'll tell you what my secret is, John. He said, my secret is WhatsApp. He said, everybody else uses email, they use phone calls, they try and text people, they try and get hold of their potential clients and potential tenants in every single way, but they don't use WhatsApp. I only ever use WhatsApp. He said, I have clients who are movie stars, rock stars, oligarchs, the most successful businessmen and women around the world. And I send them a WhatsApp and they always respond. They respond immediately. And I think that's the thing that really defines WhatsApp most of all, is that this is a universal tool for communication. Saying, should we do WhatsApp, or how should we do WhatsApp? How should we use WhatsApp is a bit like now saying, how should we use the telephone? or how should we communicate with each other? Should we do face-to-face? It's a fundamental part of the way in which we communicate in our daily lives, and everybody is involved. So the question is now, how do we do it? And these are a few hints and tips, as I say, about how we approach it based on the experience we've had. And it would be great at the end to hear other people's thoughts and experiences, what they've done. There are 5 things that define a good WhatsApp experience, what we call a two-way street, 5 questions, good privacy and consent, keeping close and realistic expectations. So just on the first one, in terms of two-way street. So as researchers, it's interesting, isn't it, that our purpose as researchers ultimately is to get closer to our consumers. And yet the truth is that we tend to keep ourselves at a distance. So what we do is we play it cool, to be honest, as researchers. We ask people along, we expect them to come to where we are most of the time. Rarely does research take place in respondents' homes. We bring them to the sort of safe space for us. We sit them across a table, and we expect them to give of their lives. We want them to tell us all about themselves and reveal their honest and deepest opinions about whatever it is we may show them, discuss with them, without giving anything of ourselves. We expect honesty and openness, and yet at the same time, we remain guarded and reserved. What we do is, on WhatsApp, and this may or may not be wrong, but we found it works, is we give of ourselves. So with WhatsApp, we have a profile. We have our personal profiles, and people. All of my researchers have dedicated phones, so they don't have their own dedicated personal phone numbers they're not giving out, but they do have to have their personal profiles on there, a personal profile, which includes, for example, a picture of them and their families. So in the spirit of openness and sharing, these are my 4 boys. There's Saul, Josh, Asher and Zachary. I even remember their names. So that's a real special event. And we show people our lives. And it's just very different to anything we've done before, which is that we show people their lives because we want them to show us theirs. And you can't expect people to do that if you're not expected to do the same. And I always think it's interesting because it always makes me slightly uncomfortable. I always feel slightly funny about the fact that actually I'm not a huge fan of social media. I don't have a massive social media presence. I don't share my life publicly with hundreds of people. And yet at the same time, I'm putting pictures up of my wife and kids so that respondents can see them. And I just think it's interesting because the fact it makes me feel funny always makes me reflect on the fact that actually respondents also probably feel a bit odd giving me or my team all this information. And therefore, it reinforces to me the importance of opening up. And actually, by starting with a conversation that says, this is me, we allow people to tell us more about themselves. Related to that, what we also do, I won't play you this because it's not that interesting, but we also do introductory videos. So once again, if we expect people to provide video responses, then we should give them video briefs. So we give of ourselves in terms of the pictures, the profiles we use, but also we give of ourselves in terms of the videos that we provide people as part of the briefing process. In terms of the privacy, privacy is obviously an incredibly important part of the WhatsApp process, and in general, our clients are not included within the WhatsApp chats, partly to protect our clients' privacy, but also to protect our respondents. I think it's interesting because one of the questions I was always asked was about, is it private? How do you deal with consent? And I actually believe that the openness and the transparency of the consent process in WhatsApp is much more akin to what GDPR rules and regulations were designed to do, which is to protect respondents and their data. So we always ask people 3 important questions. Obviously, this is as part of the recruitment process, but it's reiterated and explicitly stated within the introduction, within the start point, within the start of the chat we have with respondents, and they have to reply yes to each of the following 3, which is that these can be viewed by Kindling and their clients, they can be viewed by other client teams, and they can be viewed for market research conferences, hence being able to present the videos as something like this. And they have to say yes, and we obviously explain to them how these are going to be used, what data we're collecting, why we're collecting it, and also a link to our full privacy policy. So in my experience, they're very well protected, and I think I've only ever had one person who said no, but at least they know what they're up for from the very start. Secondly is these 5 questions. This is an example where we've actually used 3, but it's just keeping it really simple. And you do have to be realistic. You know, it rarely is an hour conversation, and you have to be aware of how much you can ask people and what you expect of them. Obviously, people do like tasks, and if you can give people very specific tasks to do, you will get feedback, good feedback on those tasks. But you don't need to just do that. You can just ask very open questions like, how do you feel about old age? Or how do you feel about football? Or what is the role of TV in your life? And then follow it up with some specific things you might want to know. So this is just indicative of the kind of ways in which we approach questions, which is firstly, tell us about you and your football, and then onto the ideas. How do you feel about the ideas? Does it appeal to you? What is best about the idea? What is your reservations and concerns? And I think what we always try and say is that you do have to trust people. You know, we are used to, as researchers, certainly in qual research, very long discussion guide. We're used to questionnaires that are well thought through, incredibly well constructed, and well refined. With WhatsApp, it does have to be a little bit more open to get the most out of the process. You have to whack your ideas up there and ask people what they think, and then be led by the response. And I think this is the other thing I just wanted to mention about best practice, is that WhatsApp is not a detached or a detached experience. If you want to do WhatsApp properly, in our experience, you have to be committed to the process. You have to be engaged in a conversation. It's not a question of sending stuff off and abandoning people. You are actually involved and engaged in a research experience. So that's kind of a few hints and tips on best practice. And the final thing I just wanted to touch upon before I end at 12 is just something on expected outputs, which is, I think, the big downside of WhatsApp, the big challenge associated with it, is the volume of stuff you get. So, you know, and then we'll talk about the outputs as well. But just in terms of the volume of stuff, we're just doing a project for a conservation charity at the moment. We're talking to 44 people about their relationships with nature and then how they feel about things like vision statements, ads, and so on. We've done it in a tranche of five questions initially, followed up by following 3 questions about some specifics. And then we're also doing Zoom interviews with them afterwards. Now, and most of that's in pairs. So it's about 22 sessions. But that's 42 people, and each of them are giving us a minimum of 8 videos. The more enthusiastic and more more engaged are giving us somewhere between 15 and 20 videos. In the space of a week and a half, we have over 500 video recordings between 2 and 6 minutes long. That is a huge quantity of data. Now, we're used to dealing with large amounts of data and analysing large amounts of data with qualitative interviews and certainly with quant research, but actually it's quite challenging. And you do need to put in place a really coherent process at the beginning of the research in order to get the most out of this. Now, the way we do that is obviously we have a core team who are watching every single video as they come in, who are responding and taking part and engaging in the conversation. Those immediately go into a shared drive, but as part of that process of watching, they also automatically create a set of highlights. Those set of highlights are then made available to the clients. And from those set of highlights, we then boil it down into 5 videos at the end. Now, and each of those videos is a maximum of 3 minutes long. And this is just the final thing I want to say, second final thing, which is that my experience, having done this now for 4 years, is that clients generally watch, and obviously I'm aware that that's who I'm speaking to, generally watch between 15 and 20 minutes worth of video maximum. That's in no way, because people have got better things to do. And it's really important that as part of the research process, we understand that there are limits to how much people are willing to engage in and watch the video outputs. And the process has to ensure that they are boiled down into something succinct, meaningful, and worthwhile watching in exactly the same way as you would do with your PowerPoint debrief. So, I mean, obviously, given the situation we're in at the moment, from what I've seen, attention spans and engagement is even lower than it would have otherwise been. And the final thing, and then I'll end, hopefully smack on 12 o'clock, is to say that it's also, it should be fun. I mean, the whole point about being engaged and interested, obviously talking about cancer and illness and serious illness and age homes, it's not a cheery subject, but it's just an incredibly rewarding, uplifting, and often entertaining way of doing research. And I'll just give you a little indicator of that now.
So next week, we're getting a bird. So a lot of my shopping right now has to do with preparing for the bird. It's not only that I'm still shopping all the time for other things, but a lot of the shopping lately has to do with my bird in mind. Like just not that long ago, I purchased some earrings because these earrings, I worry about the bird because they're hoops, you know, like pulling them off. Birds are allergic to anything non-stick, so Teflon coated basically. Well, Teflon, I guess, is a proprietary name, but anything that has non-stick coating that has these two ingredients in it, you have to throw away because it's an instant bird killer. I'm not sure about my toaster. I mean, I know it's just a toaster. It just toasts bread, but it's so dangerous that I might have to get a new toaster.
Who knew? Did anyone know? I mean, it's a shame it's not an interactive experience, but I had no idea that birds, you know, that Teflon was bad for birds and that you had to buy a new toaster. So that's it really. It's great, but it's not easy. I mean, that's the thing about, you have to get naked, you have to be prepared to reveal something of yourself. You have to stay involved, start as a chat and stay as a chat, and the process needs to be right on it from the very beginning. That's it really. Further information, obviously, presumably Suzanne will send out links. Go to the website, Kindling Social. There's a link there. You can download a brochure which has got all that stuff and more. That's a pretty looking brochure. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Suddenly it feels like the Graham Norton show. Perfect timing. Thanks very much for that super presentation. Really highlighted the potential of WhatsApp. I'd urge listeners to pop questions into the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen, and we'll field those questions at 12:30.